A reviewer's note at the top. My review period for Borderlands 4 did not begin until post-launch. My opinions on game performance are based on my own experience with the retail version of the game, which received several additional performance patches during my playtime. When it was originally announced during Gamescom last year, Borderlands 4 hit the gaming community in a strange place. It had the unenviable task of following up the series' incredibly unpopular third main entry, and until its sister Take-Two game Grand Theft Auto 6 was delayed into 2026, was going to be launching just a month prior to what was definitely going to be the biggest title of the entire year. With GTA now pushed to next spring, I think a lot of people started to earnestly expect good things from Borderlands 4, particularly with the new creative director on board to right the ship. I was personally anticipating a totally fine return to the fun I was having with the pre-sequel, but I didn't expect just how fresh this fourth title was going to feel.
You want to hear a story, huh? Yeah, old Marcus still has a few tales to tell. And this is the start of something new. A spark that just might leave the galaxies themselves ablaze. It all started here.
Borderlands as a series stars a variety of characters united by profession, that profession being Vault Hunter. Basically, in the lore of the series, ancient precursors left vaults full of unimaginable power lying all over the galaxy, and where the first two games took place on the punk rock planet of Pandora, the third revealed more vaults located on other planets and put the player character and friends on a starship to explore new worlds. The first three games, that is, the original, Borderlands 2, and the pre-sequel, had the Vault Hunters squaring off against the Hyperion Megacorporation, where Borderlands 3 introduced a new villain duo who led a cult of insane followers, clear stand-ins for internet content creators. If you're new, you're probably getting the sense that the third numbered entry massively changed a lot about the formula of the prior two, and that was a big part of why players at the time turned against it. Well-liked characters were killed off and replaced with unpopular substitutes, the antagonists were widely seen as cringeworthy, and the loss of former lead writer Anthony Birch was obvious in the even greater focus on juvenile humor and a lack of payoffs for moments that were clearly intended to be taken seriously. Borderlands 4 needed another big shakeup, and I'm thrilled to tell you that it almost entirely succeeds at fixing what became broken. This game takes place on the planet Kairos, revealed at the end of the third game, but wisely it doesn't centrally feature most of the returning cast. Instead, basically everything about it feels like a much-needed soft reboot of the story. While series mascot Claptrap does appear somewhat frequently as the leader of the organization the Vault Hunter ends up as part of, other returning characters are much more out of the way at first. This gives the new cast a lot more room to breathe, and even leaves space for the player character Hunter to get a lot of characterization. One of the primary overarching issues players tend to have with Borderlands is that the Vault Hunters tend not to get a lot of development in the title that they're playable in, but then become central figures in following games, at which point they actually become worth emotionally investing in. While it doesn't entirely fix the problem, even early on, 4 starts to pull the camera away from the first-person cutscene perspective in order to make the player's character feel more like they're actually there, rather than just being a witty voice line delivery machine. The story of 4 begins with the player being abducted and taken prisoner by the Order, an authoritarian regime ruling over Kairos and led by the Timekeeper, a much more pragmatic villain than Handsome Jack or the Calypso twins. The Timekeeper plants a controlling bolt into the Vault Hunter that he can use to easily bodyjack them and force them to take whatever action he wants, but a friendly Resistance member is able to break you out with the help of his bot Echo 4. Once you've made your prison break, you're set loose onto the shores of Kairos to join Claptrap's Crimson Resistance, a clear name reference to the Crimson Raiders from 2 and 3, but not one that shoves the reference in the player's face. Once you land, you're given an extended intro sequence that rewards the player with the game's biggest new gimmick, a glide pack. This device does what it sounds like, allowing the wearer to float through the air for a limited time and creating new avenues of maneuverability along with a grappling hook. The pre-sequel, which took place on Pandora's moon, had extra mid-air movement options similar to this in order to take advantage of the moon's low gravity, but these were removed in 3, so I was thrilled to see the return of unconventional movement options. This sequence also begins to demonstrate the biggest change in form 4 brings to the series, which is an open world. Provided you're not being roadblocked by story progress, once you acquire the glide pack and grappling hook, the huge map is yours to explore, with side quests and smaller activities quickly dotting the landscape, as opposed to the smaller zones of the past. I think this change is overall a net positive, though it does make me miss the typically more varied environments we were getting before. While the greater areas do feel like distinct biomes, you'll be spending a lot more time in each before really getting a change of scenery. Side quests are essentially the same, but the exploration activities, though a bit repetitive, do lead into one of my favorite changes 4 brings to the table. When it comes to upgrading storage capacity, whether it be backpack size, bank space, or ammo limitations, previous games had you spend iridium at specific and sometimes hard to find shops in the home base areas. This title does away with that. Instead, completing environmental tasks rewards you directly with storage deck upgrade points that can be spent right on your inventory screen. If a boss exploded like a loot pinata and you don't quite have enough space, but you do have enough points to upgrade it, now you can do so with just a few clicks. The menu system itself works fine, but does represent one of the few downgrades over the rest of the series. Borderlands has become known for its very in-your-face user interface, with the inventory and skill menus being a large part of that, and you'll be checking them frequently enough that they end up with a lot of screen time. Rather than a dynamic action pause while you pop up your loadout, Borderlands 4's menus are a functional but blank void without much in the way of personality. It's awesome how much quality of life has improved, but it did come at a cost in this case. Speaking of cost, the biggest issue the game seems to be facing on pretty much any platform is its performance, with Digital Foundry recently reporting that the game seems to suffer a memory leak on all consoles. I played on PC with just slightly better than the recommended specs. The game recommends a 6800 XT, which is the card I have, and a 5800X processor where I have the 5800X3D, and albeit with my frame rate locked at 60 for capture purposes, I experienced basically no issues on 1440p with frame drops outside of extremely minor examples during busier fights. There were a few times where I came upon a zone with variable elements like doors that could open or close where those elements didn't load properly, but reloading the area generally solved that problem. I'm not excusing the game from having any issues, just saying I can't really speak on problems I'm not experiencing in a review. The gunplay still feels as good as ever, and I'm actually completely fine with the reduced variety in the game's weapon brands, as it's in exchange for a lot more versatility and buildability. Class modifications have extra effects if you're using a particular brand, and this encouragement of loyalism makes loot even more exciting to chase since you're not exclusively going after the biggest number. The distribution of loot also feels like an improvement, with legendary tier items dropping much less frequently than in the previous title. My only issue with the combat has persisted through all of the game's patches thus far, and that is the enemy AI. Borderlands has never been known for having particularly intelligent foes, but on the game's normal difficulty, I noticed a lot of cases where distant enemies would just be staring at me without trying to approach during fights, baddies maneuvering without reason, and even several cases where they spawned or moved somewhere they couldn't hit me anymore, so I had to go find them to end a fight. The most relieving aspect of Borderlands 4, on the other hand, is its much more managed tone. The game is still plenty funny and full of satirical goodies that reflect real life, but isn't trying nearly as hard to the point of being cringeworthy, which is the direction 3 was heading in. You'll find enough goofy juvenile humor to satisfy fans who have been around since the beginning, but it feels spread out to the point where I didn't feel pandered to with inside jokes or exhausted at the thought of another fart joke. Borderlands 4 isn't perfect, but it's the closest any game in the series has gotten since the second title. By reining in the story, the humor, and the location, it's able to focus on the best aspects of the franchise without overextending itself, and if it can get its performance issues under control, might be the absolute best Borderlands. It's lost a touch of personality, but gained a lot of quality of life upgrades that keep players having fun for longer before needing to manage their inventory again. Nearly every aspect of this entry feels like it's reaching the highest highs of the series, and that's a promising sign for the future of a series that almost got stuck in gaming's past. Noisy Pixel is giving Borderlands 4 an 8.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching, and thanks to our supporters on Patreon for making our coverage possible. Go to patreon.com/noisypixel if you'd like to join them and receive our monthly digital magazine in addition to our eternal thanks. Noisy Pixel is an independent operation working hard to bring you news, reviews, previews, and more. Leave a comment below to start a conversation, come talk nerdy with us in our community Discord, and subscribe to keep up with all of our future content.
Noisy Pixel.